how to create cognitive nurture programs brought to you by Infer and Social Tables. My name is India White. I'll be providing a brief introduction to our host shortly, but before jumping into things, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping matters. In case you have to drop off at any point or would like to share this webinar with colleagues, we are recording it. The recording will be sent along with today's presentation deck to you after the webinar. We look forward to taking your questions. At any point during the presentation, please submit your questions to the question box that's located on your GoToWebinar panel. We'll be saving time at the end to answer all of these. Now to our talented hosts. Today, Ray Miller is joining us. He's the Senior Marketing Operations Manager at Social Tables. In case you aren't familiar with them, Social Tables offers leading event diagramming, seating, design, and check-in products. They provide innovative solutions to handle your complex event problems. Ray has been with the company for over 4 years, and they're a VC-backed startup based in DC with over 100 people. In addition to marketing at Social Tables, Ray is a geography buff and takes his FIFA playing very seriously. With Ray, we have Sean Zinsmeister, the VP of Product Marketing at Infer. Infer is a leading predictive sales and marketing platform that enables you to identify and target your best prospects with their industry-leading predictive scoring, sales intelligence, and account-based marketing products. Sean is an accomplished startup marketer. Previous to Infer, he built and led marketing at Nitro. Sean has a unique background as a musician-born marketer. He's a podcast and paleo aficionado, and in 2013 was the recipient of a Markey Award. That's all from me. So without further delay, take it away, Sean.
Thanks so much, India. It's great to be with everybody who is joining us to spend a little bit of their Friday morning with us. Friday morning, not typical for webinars, but I figured this is a great way to sort of cap off the end of the week with a little inspiration and what we're going to call sort of a virtual coaching session from some of the great nurture programs that I built in the past and that Ray has already put into action over at Social Tables. Before we get into all this good stuff, let's set the scene a little bit, because I know that there's some people who are familiar with AI and predictive, and we don't want to get lost in the jargon, so let's sort of start from the beginning of the story. So where does all this data come from? Well, you really have to start at the source, and this is not a new idea sort of offered by folks studying data science, AI, and et cetera, but there's an incredible amount of what we sort of call data exhaust being given off by everyone. I mean, if you look at your phone right now, it's probably transmitting a GPS system, or if you're walking around, it's counting your steps. I mean, there's a trail of data that just sort of follows us around, and it's really defined as, this trail of data left by activities of the internet user for your online activity. This is an enormous amount of often raw data that's created, which can also take the form of cookies, temporary files, log files, which can help improve online experiences like custom content and things like that. And of course, this also takes into account not only all of your engagement and event activity, but all the inquiries that you're making on it, whether you've ever filled out a form, offer download, etc. And all of this is kicking this data exhaust, what I like to think of as the data storm. And it begins to sort of start to drizzle in 2012. We're generating 2.5 billion gigabytes of data every single day as offered by our friends at IBM. And the storm gets a little bit worse, as sort of we understand that within those 2.5 million gigabytes is about 75% of the data is unstructured. In other words, random, difficult to index. And to sort of carry that definition forward, unstructured data, unstructured information refers to information that either does not have a predefined data model or is not organized in a predefined manner. Unstructured information can be typically text-heavy, may contain data as dates, numbers, and facts. For example, think of your email. There's a ton of rich insights throughout your email and the messages that you send every day, but would require sophisticated tools like NLP, natural language processing, which we'll talk about in a little bit, to go through and pick out different text patterns in order to transfer that into actionable intelligence or some sort of meaningful pattern. A lot of great companies who are out there working on these types of innovation around what they might call conversation analytics. People like Gong.io and Chorus.ai who are analyzing sales calls, converting audio into text transcripts, and then performing this type of analysis. This is a prime example of unstructured data. So we're still in this drizzle. And now the storm really starts to kick up. Whereas how does this, apply to marketing? Well, only 9% of B2B marketers say they're getting current customer information, social insights, and of course, here comes the thunder, in particular when we're talking about this sort of real-time data processing, right? And, if there's one thing that go-to-market professionals are good at, it's collecting more and more data. Another keyword volume here is real time, to bring that out again. Think about data sets like engagement and user activity. These are time-based data sets. We're going to talk a little bit about this when we talk about how we can build architectures using behavior modeling and things like that. And what we really mean is that they're constantly flowing, versus static data like firmographics and demographics and even technographics to some degree. Real-time data processing is really, really difficult. Requires a lot of storage and computer power in order to make it really useful. So where does this leave us? Well, IDC estimates will grow to the sheer size of data of almost 40,000 exabytes by 2020. And for a frame of reference, 1 exabyte equals 1 billion gigabytes. And all these numbers are going to feel like fantasy, but just know we're talking about planet-sized volumes of data here, and it keeps growing and growing and growing. So where does this leave the poor marketing and sales professional? Well, it leaves them with a lot of problems. Pretty sophisticated problems at that, which require an evolved set of tools to counter. And this is where artificial intelligence, AI, predictive analytics is really going to be able to help us. Things like too many leads, unclear segmentation, data storage. I mean, if you just think about the sheer cost of data, what it costs to hold, cents on the dollar, that adds up very, very quickly, especially if that flow is happening every single day, every single hour, every single minute. To simplify this, for this session, we're going to distill these into four different pillars. These are the most common issues sales and marketing professionals are leveraging AI to solve. I have too many prospects. Which are the best fit to buy? Well, okay, I have too few prospects. So are there more lookalikes? Can I find more contacts within the accounts that I care about? Am I missing opportunities? Who's the most engaged? Who's showing intent? What's my segmentation? Who is my ideal customer? How do I group these profiles into meaningful lists for me to then engage? So these are really the sort of four main ones that we're going to look at. And four in particular that Ray and I will cover, especially as it pertains to nurture programs. But before we dive into the programs themselves, we need to zoom in just one more level and take a look at where AI and predictive fits in your stack today. To simplify things, I really encourage system-centric thinking, right? So try to break it into your main systems. This philosophy is something that's shared by many ops professionals, as well as seasoned entrepreneurs and investors like Jerry Chen over at Greylock Ventures, who wrote a great piece on systems of intelligence being the next wave of innovation and key differentiators of product companies. He talks about things like a moat strategy. I really encourage people to Google that article. We'll probably send that in the notes as a follow-up as well. AI is your system of intelligence and really sits along to other key systems in your stack. Your system of record, which for many is a CRM like Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, HubSpot, Pipedrive, or heck, even a good old-fashioned spreadsheet. And there's still a lot of businesses, even really highly sophisticated enterprises, that are still using one spreadsheet to rule them all. So let's zoom in one more level. Let's take a little bit look at the guts, the key pieces you need to look at. What are the key components of AI in the system of intelligence? Don't get bogged down with all of the jargon. Let's pull out and define a couple of key terms that I think will really help you along the way as we sort of dive into the main use case of the presentation today. And these are some important components of AI. Machine learning. Okay, you can't be a marketing or a sales professional without hearing about ML, machine learning. You're hearing a lot about this, right? At the core, machine learning is a subfield of computer science. It's created by Arthur Samuel in 1959. Essentially, you're looking at the ability for computers to learn without explicitly being programmed. That's what machine learning is. That's the core definition. Things like natural language processing, NLP, you'll hear this a lot too. It's the ability for a computer to understand human speech as it is spoken, right? So you think about, your Siri, your Amazon Echo. These are sort of the early stage of these devices that you're starting to see. NLP is a key component of AI. And how about one more? Data science. This is another one, also known as data-driven science. essentially, it talks about systems to extract knowledge or insights from data in various forms, either structured or unstructured. What it's really meaning, very simply, is think of data science as finding patterns in your data. And like any AI, you need inputs. So if you look at the sort of far left of this slide here, you're talking about the mixture of first-party, third-party data. First-party, things like your CRM system, things like your marketing automation. Third-party data sources that predictive vendors like Infer can provide through their own partnerships. Also, things like web crawl, external signals, and things like that. Other third-party data sets could include things like government data, right? Things that the Secretary of State bring down as well. That you're constantly looking at sort of new businesses that are being registered, and that's just the type of data that they might be able to access and apply to some of these models. And in the middle, it's all being prepared. The data needs to be prepared. There's no such thing as a perfect data set. In fact, if you look at your own data, you probably say, well, there's a lot of things that are missing here, or things were entered incorrectly or wrong, or things like that. Well, an important part of this process is being able to use an infrastructure like a predictive platform, an AI platform, to prepare that data for modeling. So it includes things like normalization. It includes things like data enrichment. Can we help fill in the holes so we can complete the picture so we can make a more accurate? And usually this is prepared by AI and an infrastructure and even a human data scientist that we incorporate here on the Infer side. And of course, the outputs you're looking for, the main use cases, the applications, things like sales performance management, marketing efficiency, and data-driven workflows. We're going to really focus on the marketing efficiency and the data-driven workflows today. Okay, so in honor of Wimbledon, we're going to zoom all the way out again and think of AI very simply as the line judge, except in this case, your line judge is infallible, although John McEnroe will probably argue with the AI just the same if you were playing today. And what AI is trying to do here is make a judgment call based on all that wonderful data that we input, the stuff we talked about in the previous slide, and trained on. Whether or not that prospect is a good fit, highly engaged, showing intent, or both. Or maybe it's just one of those dimensions that your business cares about. And there's a lot of different dimensions that we can use. And this is where the math really comes in. We are able to predict through complex calculations, those key components we were talking about, that these prospects have, X percentage likelihood of converting, and even better, can return X, using X as a variable here, ACV. You want to make sure that you're getting the most bang for your buck. Okay, so now that you have a solid foundation and some of the basics around AI and how it applies to sales and marketing, but in order to really lock things in, I always think that the best way to understand what's going on here is to dive directly into a use case. And today that spotlight use case is around using AI in nurture programs, or what we call cognitive nurture programs. So we're going to start by talking about primary inbound nurture program using fit. Remember, we talked about that's one of the qualifying criteria. Are you a good fit for your business? So in this architecture is something I created in a previous role when I was leading global marketing operations. Before I joined Infer, I was actually an early customer of theirs, so I had a chance to be hands-on with the technology and create these sort of high-performing nurture programs using an Eloqua system at the time, but this can be created with any marketing automation system. So let's walk through this basic flow and how it's built. It starts with the web. This is where engagement and activity data is collected, but is usually the first touch point and portal, if you will, when a prospect converts from unknown to known. It flows through our system, as you see here, our sort of little mini stack, and we've created a segment and some very simple conditional logic, right? So if the score is greater than or equal to, let's just use an arbitrary number like 90, we're going to return this as an A. It's going to be given a grade of an A, and we're going to put that in the A bucket. You might get a little bit more sophisticated here and say, well, if the score is greater than or equal to 95, to go back to my scoring, actually that's an A plus, we might call it, right? Let's route those guys directly to sales because your job as a marketer is to deliver qualified prospects to your sales team. Big underline, bold, italics around qualified. While you love those inbound hand raisers who request a demo, quote, or pricing, there just aren't always enough of those layups, if you will, to go around. However, And to continue my basketball analogy a little bit, we can make sure sales is taking high percentage shots, or to switch sports, swinging at strikes. Give them the best opportunities. Remember, we talked about, qualification criteria is calculated on having X percentage likelihood of conversion. That's really key there. So we're going to take this model and extend it into 4 different buckets. My friends at New Relic, part of the Infer family, has been with us for about 6 years now, get very fancy and extend this all the way to E and F buckets, I believe. This is entirely up to you, but I prefer to keep things simple as possible. We don't want to put too much strain on our marketing automation system and create sort of this, this really difficult web for us to manage. So since A leads are likely to convert, we have a high likelihood, high predictability of to convert, it makes sense to deliver a message that perhaps is a bit more sales-centric. Hey, you look like a great fit for our product or service. Would you be interested in speaking with one of our experts or learning more about how we can solve that problem that other folks who look like you typically have? You see, just by gaining more certainty on profile fit, it gives us another level of personalization along with a heightened customer experience. And for each bucket that is a little less qualified, right? Not as good of a fit, but we still want to be able to nurture them. We're going to extend our drip campaign and maybe cool down our messaging. By cool down, I mean let's back away from a sales message and move to something that's more of a problem statement. And okay, so I almost forgot. So you see this thing called a recycle program here. And this is a concept actually taken from David Lewis of Demand Gen International. If you're looking for a great primer, I highly recommend checking out his book, Manufacturing Demand. And really, these are low cadence, low touch nurture programs, like a monthly newsletter. Something that you send to a prospect. It's pretty, maybe once a month. You want to stay in touch, but not burn out the prospect if the timing is off, etc. And you're going to follow this kind of model for each bucket. So you're extending as the qualification criteria gets a little bit lower. And to throw some more jargon out there, this is really an example of a customer journey. And AI, in this case, is acting as your guide point to help you optimize this journey and give you kind of a structure that you can take and customize for your business and your environment. And to throw a great customer example out there, our friends at Hotjar, also another member of the Infer family, they use a similar journey architecture when how they convert trials to great success. In this case, they're using HubSpot along with Infer, and there's a full story over on our website if you want to hear more details about what they've built out using AI and Nurture. But it looks actually a lot like the architecture that we just ran through. Obviously, they've personalized their message and given it their own personality. So you can read about that on the HubSpot site, also on the Infer website as well. But what does success look like for them? They're looking for increased engagement, increased qualified leads, and also increased conversion rates. And they've even taken things a step further, being able to measure marketing impact and used AI and predictive analytics to understand which marketing channels are delivering the best prospects so they have better insight into where to deploy their marketing budget. And remember when we were talking about engagement data before. So this is where we want to go next. So what about adding behavior as a dimension? Well, I think it's important to understand that there's a huge difference when we're talking about a time-based data set and a static data set. Remember, static data sets, things that aren't likely to change very often. They might, technographics, for example, might change a little bit, or maybe your business changes locations, firmographics, demographics, but for the most part, it's going to stay pretty consistent. But behavior is always changing. You go from having a lot of activity, a spike in activity, to not having so much. You have that decay. And so you're looking at things where a fit remains consistent over the lifespan of a prospect. Your behavior is always changing. And this is one of the big important best practices in data science. We always recommend keeping the two separate, that is, fit and behavior, versus combining them. So think back to your 4x4 scoring grid where you have fit in one dimension and then behavior on another. If you combine them, you're essentially flattening time. You lose a ton of rich information that can be valuable, that can give you valuable clues about your prospects. And again, you can see how sort of fit remains static. And this is a really important concept to walk away with. So how do we add behavior into our fit architecture from earlier? Well, we can use AI to understand and detect when a prospect, remember that's that time variable, when a prospect is likely to convert. showing high signs of intent, when they're engaging with our content. And it might also make sense as you think about the customer journey and all those little boxes that you're going to be sending content and messages to, those offers, separate your content into different streams and hard and soft offers. And here's what I mean. Soft offers being things like white papers, video engagement, ROIs, solve-rate activity data, maybe a little bit softer. And you can also offer sort of harder offers, request a demo, contact me, and things like that. And we can keep this structure mostly the same as we had before. All you've added here is a second dimension of qualification. It says, hey, if you're a good fit, highly engaged, or both, let's get you over to a salesperson. This is also a great way to resurrect zombie leads, if you will, that have been hibernating in your nurture database. We have a catchy expression here at Infer that nurture is another word for neglect. They might have been receiving that monthly newsletter from your recycling program, and then 4 to 6 months later from now, they have a project ready to go, and all of a sudden they're super active, and this is an opportunity you want to jump on quickly. Remember, right time, right message, as it were. Okay, I've hogged the microphone for quite a bit right now, and I want to get to the real star of our broadcast, Ray Miller, but before I do, I would be remiss if we didn't offer an example of how you might apply cognitive architectures for outbound or ABM in this case. So in this case, one switch that we'll make with our systems is we'll replace our marketing automation with our favorite sales automation tool. In these cases, the contacts from accounts you care about could be cold, and it's not really best practice to send communications to cold prospects from your map. I don't recommend it. Your sales automation system is better equipped like an outreach and better suited, better built for that. And the sort of idea here is, creating what we call an always-on program by aligning your ABM display advertising and direct mail campaigns with your sales outreach sequences. In this case, AI is going to help you find the right prospects that look a lot like your target accounts, but also from these data sources, we're going to help find the right contacts, the people that you need to get in touch with, that you want to reach out to, and fill those accounts. That's a very, very common use case for demand gen in ABM using AI. And also you'll have behavior sort of flowing all through this type of architecture, right? So as you're tracking engagement, understanding which accounts and prospects are showing engagement, you can also understand, hey, we're getting a lot of engagement from these target accounts that we care about the most, or hey, we might be missing the mark as well. And now, it's my pleasure to introduce my friend and real star of our broadcast, Ray Miller, and he will show you how he's applying some of these contracts to social tables. So let me skip ahead real quick. We'll definitely send these slides out as a reference, but let me change the presenting over to Ray and take it away.
All right, thanks, Sean. That was a really good intro and to give everybody an idea of what Social Tables does. So we're a software company and we work mainly in the hospitality and event space. So you're probably not too familiar with us, but hopefully one day everybody will be. We're established in 2011. I've been there since 2013. In that time, we've grown from 10 employees to over 100 employees. We have 4,000 customers in 76 countries. And our software mainly focuses on the execution of events and so like everything in the planning process all the way up to the day of the event. So with that, we have 1.5 billion square footage of event space drawn. So hotels all over the world, we have that in our proprietary system, and they're able to create their events in there. We've impacted over 100 million participants that have been checked in through our check-in software, and over 1 million events. Actually, it's about to pass 2 million events or have been created in our software. So that kind of gives you an idea of we're dealing with a multifaceted lead universe where we have people that plan events at properties who work for a hotel, but we also have people that plan events at corporations. And here's some examples of our customers. So we work with people like Hyatt and Marriott, but also large stadiums like MetLife Stadium, and out in San Francisco, we actually work with the Giants and Levi's Stadium as well. And then we also work with major corporations, college university systems, and catering companies. So we have a really wide audience of people that we're talking to. And that makes it really challenging as a marketer to tailor your message and really make your nurture program relevant when you're dealing with many different use cases of the same product. And it's kind of a unique challenge that we have. And I want to set the stage so you understand what type of software that I'm using and kind of how we break it out. So Sean talked about systems of record. These are kind of our marketing system of record, and we use Salesforce and Pardot. And Infer is actually a really key piece of not only our lead scoring, but it's also one of our main ways that we report out analytics and manage the lead cycle. And today I'm going to talk to you kind of how we use the Infer scoring system to do nurture programs that are more relevant to our customers. So our main challenge that I'm going to address a nurture program with is about a year and a half ago, we just had too many leads with a super unclear definition of a marketing qualified lead. I'm sure other people can relate to that definition of a marketing lead problem. We went back and forth with sales on this, and we just really we were unsure what should be a marketing qualified lead. And then we also had varied performance in our advertising channels, but also with our blog and our website, really different levels of conversion. And it was really kind of hard to determine where we should allocate our budget, where we should allocate our time, and where people should be spending their time. And should we do custom programs for different channels and different audiences? So that was also another challenge that we had. And we also were experiencing tremendous growth in new advertising channels, but also in new partner channels. And we really had no way to tell people how to prioritize their efforts, both on the sales side, which is a typical use case for Infer, but also on my team, we didn't know kind of how to communicate. These are the emails that are most important, and these are the nurture programs that we really need to work. And by using Infer, we actually were able to figure out what should we cut and what should we keep doing. And the answer there is actually we cut more things than we kept, which has been great for us because I think, like Sean said, simplicity is great, and you really don't want to max out your marketing automation system doing too much. So that was another challenge that we had. And this is kind of the things that I was thinking about. So we had a 14-day free trial, and the 14-day free trial we knew was like our most consistent lead source. It pretty much produced 3,000 leads every single month without changing anything in our systems or trying to optimize for anything. That's the number we were going to land on. The interesting problem that we kind of had is half of those submissions were unqualified by a personal email. So even though it was our number one lead channel, we inherently knew off the bat that 50% of those leads would actually not go to our enterprise team and would go to our e-commerce platform. So we didn't really know how to segment those people out and give them an offer that would help them go self-service as opposed to talking to a sales rep. We had a small sales team, just 10 development reps, following up on all these leads. And we had a really standard, just like generic trial direct program that sent the same message to everybody and was so generic that it didn't even really give a product value because, like I mentioned earlier, we have such a varied audience that we didn't want to turn anybody off of potentially using our product by them seeing a message that didn't relate to them. So what we did, we kept looking at the numbers, and when we brought on Infer, we realized that really only 30% of our leads were producing our revenue. So we knew that we had to narrow in on those leads and make sure we figured out if they didn't convert within 7 days, they weren't going to convert. So we had to go really hard at those leads as soon as they came into our funnel and get them a relevant offer so they could convert in a slow time period. Another piece of context is our sales cycle is relatively low, and our ASP is relatively low as well. So we're a very transactional business, so things need to move very fast through our funnel. So you can take a look at my nurture program. Looks very similar to the one that Sean set up, because I was once told that the good marketers plagiarize, or good marketers copy and the best marketers plagiarize. So I just took what was working for Sean and said, if this is working for them at Infer and at Nitro, we need to figure out a way to make this work for social tables. So our leads come in through the web, and depending upon if they're an A or a B lead, they're going to get a demo offer within the first 2 days of signing up for a trial. If they're a B lead, they'll also get a customer-specific problem case study. So we have a lot of customers, and they're really great, and they love sharing their story about how they use social tables. So we have a ton of case studies. We weren't really getting a lot of traction with them until we put them into this program, where we started sending them to more relevant prospects that we were able to find using Infer's technology. And then also we're able to segment out the C and D leads. And what we did there was say, okay, well, we know some of these C leads do produce some of our revenue, so let's give them a try at solving a customer-specific problem and the customer type case study. And then if that doesn't work, let's send them an e-commerce offer, like we send to our D leads. So all of those leads, as soon as someone signed up for a trial of social tables, I knew that the next 6 months of their life cycle was set by how they scored as a lead. And that's a really comforting thing to know as a marketing ops person, is our forms on our website are sending people through a complex nurture program that's going to last for 6 months, and ultimately they're going to be in our monthly industry and product program. Sean kind of talked about the recycle programs. For us, we send out an industry newsletter every month that has helpful articles and is very similar to what you were describing. And then also, we're a startup and we're releasing new products all the time. So while you might have not been a great fit for us today, we might have something that will be a good fit for you at a later date. And we like to keep the C and D leads in the loop there, because I think it's really important that just because they don't score well for you today doesn't mean in the future that they won't be a good lead for you. So that's our email nurture program. Pretty simple, really easy to implement, but what we're able to do is actually put thought behind it and have real offers that were going to people that we knew to be the best prospects. And one of the things I think we were struggling with was our conversion rate was so low because our denominator was so high. And what we did was reduce the number in our denominator by only tailoring messages to specific groups of people that were smaller. And by doing that, it gave us the ability to know when we tested things what actually works. So you can imagine if you're sending out just a generic email with your trial drip to everybody, you might think it performs really well, but really only the D leads were clicking on the links that you wanted them to click on and signing up for the demos that you wanted them to sign up for, and the A leads weren't. So your messaging was wrong, but you didn't even realize it was wrong because the numbers looked good. So that's just a huge learning that we've had. We also learned that layering in branded emails with emails from reps improve the overall success of conversion. And what I mean by that is, like, the first email is like just a welcome email that says like, hey, welcome to Social Tables. Here's your trial. Here's a couple helpful links. Then when we're asking for demos, it's actually coming, from Ray, and it's not a HTML email. It's just a regular text-based email that gives a value offer to that person. And we saw that improve success on conversion because we were giving them both product education from the brand and also a personalized touch from a rep. We were able to, I know I go to a lot of these webinars, I've been to a lot of conferences, and no one ever talks about like what actually happened and how they actually improved it. But we decreased our conversion time from 62 days to 27 days to opportunity on average during that time. And like I mentioned earlier, we're an extremely transactional business, and that's basically adding almost a full 2 months of work days back into someone's sales cycle. And we're able to churn out revenue faster because the people are seeing the value in the software earlier. And then the other thing that I would just highly recommend is segmenting your leads from the start drastically improved our sales team's activities. So not only were we sending the same generic email to everybody, but we were actually sending all leads to the sales team regardless. And actually filtering those leads out at the start got us to improve the number of phone calls and the number of personalized emails that the reps were sending, because no longer were they getting 300 leads a person, they were getting 100 leads a person. And they knew that marketing was sending these leads, and marketing knows that these leads are the most qualified leads. So naturally, the dials that were going into the bad leads went into the good leads instead. And the other thing that we found out, I mentioned the targeted offer for customer-specific targeted offers. We found that sales was more likely to follow up with a phone call on the offer if it was more specific to the type of customer we were talking to. They said that, when following up on offers that are generic, it's kind of like, free support is a pretty generic offer. And I see that a lot around, like, oh, free customer support. Nobody wanted to follow up on that offer. But when we were able to tailor it a little bit more to a hotel and say, we'll give you 50% off drawing your blueprints for the hotel, that's a way more compelling offer for someone to follow up on. And the last thing I kind of want to mention is I think people very often think about nurturing as just emails. And one of the things that we decided to do about 6 months ago was say, okay, well, let's kind of take the same strategy that worked here and use it in our advertising programs. So it's the same structure. The leads are coming through in the same way. But what we do is we take all of the A, B, and C leads that come in through this form, and the ones that haven't converted to opportunities, the first thing we do after the 14-day trial is over, every Monday I pull out a report of Salesforce of the people who haven't converted, and we upload those into Facebook and other ad networks that allow you to do matching to email addresses, and we retarget those people with customer-specific ebooks. So we segment them out and say, do you plan events, or do you own a place that has events? And we send them in the ad networks an ebook download for a specific offer. And then the next thing that we do, this is kind of the soft offer, hard offer, is we let that ad play out for as long, our digital marketer lets the ad play out for as long as there's not deteriorating performance. And then we take that first group that we took and we change the retargeting to sign up for a demo of Social Tables, because we know based on our own data that if we can get someone to do a trial and sign up for a demo, that they're twice as likely to buy our software. So by using the ad network and the emails at the same time, we're trying to maximize the awareness aspect of who we are, what we do, and what our value proposition is, because our industry is very new to software as a service type technologies. So it's really important that we drill home what we do and why we're better. And it takes a long, they're definitely further down on the adoption curve than technology marketers. So then after all that happens, and those ads have ran and the emails have ran, we actually recycle them back to sales. We wait a business week before we send them back to the sales team to call again. And the way we look, we kind of have a phrase called outbounding the inbounds, where it's basically like they've went through the funnel, they haven't converted, they've seen our ads, and they've seen all the emails. Let's now try to outbound into them again and see, can we get these people to convert? So that's kind of the ad aspect of it. And I think it's really important to think about that, because I think oftentimes we think of ads as acquisition channels, but they also can be really great nurture channels. And just some of the results that we've seen, I mean, we've had tremendous success using Infer, using the kind of flows that I've showed you. We've increased our revenue, increased our deal size, increased the number of trial signups that we're getting that are qualified, because we're able to then take what we know is working and where those A leads are coming from and circle back to the ad network and say, okay, we need to invest more in this in this channel rather than that channel because this one drives A leads rather than D leads. So we've expanded our MQL volume tremendously. And actually just this month, we released, based on all the success that we've had here, we changed our free trial to actually be a free product because our marketing team is able to effectively drive revenue using these programs. And we kind of structured them around some of the things that we've learned through this. So not only have we increased these things, but we've now totally opened up our audience and are kind of taking a different strategy. So overall have seen tremendous results with this. And yeah, I really, really highly recommend doing something like this at your organization. And that's all for me. And I think we'll open it up to questions now, if that's okay with Sean.
Yeah, that's great. So thank you to everybody that submitted questions. We do have a few here. The first one directed to Sean. How much data is required to get started with AI and predictive analytics?
It just wouldn't be a webinar on AI or predictive without having this question. Well, the simple answer is it depends. It actually depends on the type of model that you want to build. But look, the easiest way to say is that if we're looking at something that's going to be extraordinarily custom for your business, we usually like to look at least 400 to 600 what we call wins and losses. And we just want to be able to see those signals so we can sort of back our way into a model. They're different. The more data you have is always better. AI, to be really, really efficient and powerful, does require a lot of data. However, there is a lot of what I would call sort of human-centric machine learning or similarity modeling, which doesn't require as much data input, where you can sort of use a seed list to sort of understand which, complete your TAM analysis, understanding which accounts are similar, and in also interesting ways to sort of crowdsource what we call human labels to be able to sort of have that as a data set as well. So there's a number of ways that you can look at it. If you're of the sort of smaller data set, I wouldn't, the way to think about it is not necessarily thinking, oh, I'm not a good fit for AI and predictive. It's really more about thinking about rather what is the problem that you want to solve. Do you have a qualification problem? Do you have a demand gen problem? Do you need to fill the top of the funnel with more lookalike prospects? Do you have a segmentation problem? It's really looking at your business and maybe start with the problem first and match it with AI, because the technology is becoming better and better every single day with new innovations. And I would say that the data sets the size of the data sets themselves, the quality of the data sets will be less of a key criteria. Obviously, the most effective use cases for AI today are the social tables, the Nitros, Tableaus, Microsoft, any businesses that have massive tops of funnel that are driving lots of inquiries and leads. But this isn't necessarily a must-have, because there's a lot of different ways that you can go about it. So a great question nonetheless.
So another one, and sort of building off of that question, in the future, will it be complete programmatic, or will it be manual for some extent, or to some extent?
That's a really interesting question, and I definitely would love to get Ray's opinion on this. I'm becoming a big believer in human-centric machine learning. I think the human curator is really important these days. I think that it's going to be about, if I could zoom out and be a little bit philosophical for a second, I think that using AI to automate and make programmatic little things that are tedious, like some of these customer journeys that we talked about today, I think those can be highly automated. Now, what can't be automated as easily today is the content creation bit. And while you could get lost in articles and discussions around deep learning and neural nets being able to do content creation today, and I think that that will get there. We'll have better automated content creation. I would still question some of the quality. I do think that the human in the loop is going to be one of the best models moving forward. Same reason why a driverless car is going to need to have an engineer in them for a while before you think it's going to be safe to put your kids in a Waymo or a driverless car and send them off to school. There's going to be that percentage of error and the risk associated with it, and I think that you'll have to sort of make that decision. But Ray, it's an interesting question. What do you think in terms of sort of going full programmatic?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. It's basically, to me, I kind of think about it like I know things at this point that the machine doesn't know, and there's things about the machine that I don't quite understand, and until we both are able to meet on the same level, and I think it's really important for marketers, but also humans in general, to understand like the underlying processes that are happening in these systems so that you're then able to be an effective analyst. And that's kind of the one thing that I don't think that we're there yet on is actually producing results for every single person that are custom to that company. I mean, you probably have a way different sales force than I have, and everybody on this call probably has different ways of recording things. So you kind of have to be the man behind the machine, like in Wizard of Oz, almost.
Yeah.
I think hopefully it gets there, but that would put us out of jobs, I think.
I think that soon enough. There's a really great paper that was actually released that you can look up. Booth School of Business just released it, talking about overcoming algorithm aversion. It talks about people will use imperfect algorithms if they can even slightly modify them. It really talks about participants considering more likely to choose like an imperfect algorithm that they could use to modify forecasts. And it really talks about that mixture of human and loop as it pertains to this. So I highly encourage people to go check out that article as well as it pertains to that conversation.
Great. Our next question is aimed towards Ray. What are some other use cases for artificial intelligence that you guys are leveraging at Social Tables?
So lead routing is really big for us. So one of the things that we used to do was just assign all leads that didn't have a territory. We have like a few groups that have territories, but most of the leads that we get actually don't have territories. So we were just assigning them round robin, and then what we realized was people were actually getting a lumpy number of leads that were high scoring. So what we did was say, okay, let's make the round robins grouped A, B, C, and then say, okay, for these 19 people, every A lead they get, they're going to have to wait 18 more people to get another A lead and B lead and so on. So grouping those leads together and assigning them by A leads and by B leads and by C leads has produced way more even results on a sales rep level. And then another interesting use case that we've used and have seen a lot of success with is, I kind of touched on a little bit in our ad networks, but we actually look at most of our UTM campaigns and the leads that they're driving. How many of those MQLs are actually A and B leads for those channels in that campaign? And then we optimize our spend accordingly. And actually, we've cut out a lot of our spend and put it into better places because we've seen, these just drive e-commerce leads, and our company and our board is really focused on enterprise leads and not our kind of self-service package. So that's another really great use case that we've been using Infer for.
Yeah, I think that when you talk about like marketing efficiency, it's like, how can you be the hero to your CFO? It's like, if you could be a marketing department that actually reduces wasteful spend and puts more money back into the business, then you can start to go into your quarterly business reviews and say, hey, marketing, put back, X amount of dollars that's equal to one deal per month. And it's about like making sure that you're spending time and effort as well as marketing dollars on the programs that are more likely to succeed, and then constantly adjusting and adjusting and adjusting. So I love that practice.
So based on what you're saying, Ray, it sounds like there's a lot that goes into setting up these programs. A question here, how long did it take you to get started with artificial intelligence and Infer?
So I remember when we bought Infer, we we got a invite to install the package. I installed the package. Our account rep said, "Do you want me to score it tonight?" We scored it tonight. Within 24 hours, the next day, I was up and using the software, and we were already embedding it in our reports. And I think, you know, artificial intelligence is kind of as in predictive lead scoring and predictive analytics and tools like that are only as good as the team of people that is working on the product, but also the team of people that is in your own company. And if you have a problem to solve and you know what that problem is and it's really tangible, AI and predictive lead scoring can really help you get a clear understanding of what's going on. Like, we were able to be making decisions like that we couldn't even dream of making within 1 week. So yeah, they seem like they're complicated programs to set up, but really they just take a little bit of effort. The more complicated part is actually once you get them set up, like Sean said, you can't just leave it. Like, you got to keep analyzing it, and you got to make better messages, and you have to check in weekly, and you can't just set it and forget it. Like, that's how we all get these terrible spam emails basically all the time. You know, you really gotta get in there. Once you have it set up, that's just your architecture. Like, you gotta test, you gotta learn, you gotta get better. And that's the biggest piece of advice I can give.
Great. So getting to the top of the hour here, one last question directed towards both of you, I guess. What is intent data, and are you using it today?
Yeah, so this is, I mean, I think that a lot of the conferences that I've been to lately, this, intent data is in vogue again. I think that it kind of goes through its different hype cycles. There's two different types of intent data. We're talking about the engagement and behavior and activity data. Those are all synonymous. Essentially what you're after is the user engagement. And intent data gets split into two different categories. There's first-party intent data, which is highly, highly predictive. And this is data being collected by your systems that you own, like your marketing automation system, your Google Analytics, and things like that. The reason that they're highly predictive is that you have the most coverage. There's plenty of those signals. They're happening quite a bit, hence they are highly predictive. There's a whole thing, if you look at Google, what is intent data, there's a research paper that we wrote and sort of add some science behind this as well if people are really interested in diving into that topic. The other piece is the third-party intent data, which is like, can we understand the activities of people who are researching topics that we care about, who are off-site? And I think that this is a really interesting frontier, and I think is definitely going to get better and better as we go along. I also think that there are a lot of seasoned marketers who believe that if marketing is doing their job, then you should know about all the people in the first-party data set without having to sort of go and explore and like fill in the gaps, although that's an interesting argument we can have later on. So those are the different types. It's really about that behavior data. I think behavior modeling, behavior scoring, it's really where people should start. Fit, then behavior, and then if you really feel like you want to have a third degree, that interest level, it might be interesting to look at sort of third-party data sets as well. I don't know, Ray, did you have other thoughts on intent data as well? Curious what you thought.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of summed up my thoughts. I think the best place to start really is with fit data, because that can tell you a lot of stuff that you probably didn't really think about before, and it surfaces a lot of things and a lot of leads that you probably would have never followed up on before. But yeah, I agree with you.
Great. I think that's all the questions that we received. Is there any other final comments that you guys would like to make?
I did see that somebody was looking for the name of the booth article that I had mentioned. You know what I'll do in the follow-up, because we'll send the recording along, I'll include a couple of the reference links as well, the stuff that we talked about. The Greylock article I think would be interesting for people to take a look at, as well as the booth article that I could certainly do. Also, if you want to have it immediately, feel free to shoot me a DM on Twitter. S Zinsmeister is how to find me, or feel free to just shoot me an email as well, sean@infer.com, and I can just flip those links around a lot faster if you're interested.
Great. That's all we have for you today. Thanks so much for joining us. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, we will be sending a recording of this. If you have any questions, be sure to reply to that email when it comes out to you. Thanks again.